friend, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. If you clicked on this video, I am assuming that you're in that very delightful time of life where either you're about to finish your dietetic internship or you might be in the middle of your dietetic internship and the exam is just out there looming. We have all been there before and I just want you to know that I've got you. I am here today to help you figure out a path towards passing on the first try. Grab a coffee, grab a snack, and let's chat about the RD exam. If you're new here, my name is Danielle. I have been a registered dietitian for about 7 months now, and I did pass my exam on my first try. I make videos here on YouTube about easy nutrition tips and meal planning for families, and I'd love it if you join my community. All right, now that we have our coffee, let's chat. So I took my exam about 7 months ago, and like you might be right now, I was terrified. I'm here at the testing center. I'm about to take my test. I'm feeling all kinds of things. I feel definitely not ready, but I don't know that you would ever feel ready for this test. Let's do this. I felt like I did not know anything. I was convinced I wasn't going to pass, especially because with all of the dietitian Facebook groups and Instagram communities, everyone that I saw was out there taking this exam like 5, 7, even 12 times. And that just terrified me. But to my surprise and utter delight, all right, well, it's done. I passed. I can't believe it. I'm a registered dietitian. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I can now say it. I am a registered dietitian. Oh my gosh. This is so cool. I passed on the first time. This information that I'm going to share with you today is stuff that I just wish that someone would have told me before I took my exam. Hey friends, future Danielle popping in here just to tell you a little bit about the exam. If you're unfamiliar, I realized through the course of editing this video that I didn't really give any details about the exam, and if you are earlier on in your dietitian journey, you might not be aware. So let's get into that real quick. This is a proctored exam, meaning you have to go to a testing center to take this. The registration fee for one exam is $225. Now, I will say last year in 2024, they did introduce a slightly controversial 2-pack of tests. So if you were very unsure about taking the exam like I was, you could buy 2 test certificates essentially, and you do get a little bit of a deal on that. So if you wanted to buy the 2 tests instead of just the 1 test, you would be charged $325. Now, while you do save money buying the 2 tests at once instead of buying them individually, unfortunately, you don't get that money back if you do pass on the first time. So that is something to keep in mind. However, it is a good amount of money off. It's about at least $100 off over the course of 2 tests. So it's kind of like buying a $100 insurance policy. So there is that to consider. The test itself is about 2.5 hours. They say you get 3 hours, but really you have 2.5 hours to take the exam itself. You have 20 minutes before the exam to do the introduction stuff on the computer and sign some paperwork, including a non-disclosure agreement. After you finish the exam, you're also prompted to take a survey. So you get about 10 minutes for that. So all told, it's 3 hours, but the exam starts, the 2.5 hours starts when you answer your first question. Now, something that is really important about this exam is that you can't go back or review your answers. Once you answer a question, it just moves you forward. So that is important to know and to keep in mind as you're going through. You can't like skip question and come back to it. You have to just answer it and then move on. So for the length of the exam, it is variable. It is 125 to 145 questions, depending on how you answer them, how correct you are. The exam will shut off just on its own, whether you have hopefully passed the exam. Whenever you pass the exam at any point between 125 and 145, after you answer the question, it will just shut off. Or if you run out of time, it will shut off. Or, of course, the maximum number of questions is 145 questions. So it will shut off after you reach 145 questions. It does tell you, I think in the upper right-hand corner, but at this point I can't remember. It does tell you what question you're on, so you will know. And the breakdown of the exam, I will put on the screen right here. It does change every 5 years. They do an audit. So we are almost to the end of the cycle. The exam will change again in 2027, I believe. They will release a new one. So depending on when you're watching this video, there might be a new exam or a new exam about to come. I will link down in the description box where I got that breakdown from and the study guides that are available directly from CDR. I also want to encourage you that if you get to question 125 and the exam doesn't shut off, that this does not mean in any way that you have no hope of passing. I have plenty of friends who got to a 145 and they still passed. So please don't have anxiety about getting to 126 because there are 20 questions still in between you and the results of this exam. Something that we do need to talk about is in the event that you don't pass your exam, there is a 45-day waiting period for you to re-register for the exam. So that's just something to know, especially if you have a job waiting on you. There is a 45-day waiting period. I've heard that you can maybe get that expedited if you get a letter from manager or something like that, but by and large, it is a 45-day waiting period. I hope this information helps you, and let's get on with the video. So is the RD exam actually easy? In reality, the answer is both yes and no. It is easier than you think it's going to be, I promise. But it's also really hard. The questions are asked in a very convoluted way, and because this exam is adaptive, it kind of shifts domains depending on where your strengths and weaknesses are. So we will talk about some resources to help you know where your strengths and weaknesses are in each domain towards the end of the video. This exam is also just really challenging because it produces a lot of anxiety in us. There are a lot of interns like myself, I was one of them, that had jobs writing on the line of passing or failing this exam. And so we put a lot of pressure on it because it is a big deal and it affects our career if we don't pass. The other thing is the questions asked on this exam are situational questions. They aren't necessarily how much protein is in 1 cup of skim milk. It's giving you a situation with a client or a patient, and you need to figure out which is the best route for them, or which is the best TPN calculation for them, for example. And when you get these questions, there are 4 multiple choice answers, and you have to choose the most correct one. All of them could be correct. Obviously, that's not going to be the case in the TPN situational question, but all of them could be correct, but you want to choose the most correct. I know that you have most likely heard this before, but with these situational questions, it is much more important to know why something is correct or incorrect than just memorizing answers, because memorizing answers will not help you on this exam. This is where using resources to learn how to read the exam questions and how to decipher what the exam is looking for in the answer is so key. We will talk about the resources that I used in a minute, and there is a lot of great ones out there, but make sure you know how to read the questions and how to pick out correct answers before going into this exam. Let's talk about the resources I used to study for the RD exam. I was lucky enough to get gifted 2 different resources by my dietetic internship program. One I bought before I found out we were getting gifted it, and then the other one I didn't. But the first one I used was Pocket Prep. I am sure you are familiar with this. It is an app that lets you run through questions and get graded on different domains of the exam. This is a really great app, especially when I was still in my internship early on. I could just do questions and even mock exams. However, I found the questions were incredibly difficult. In fact, way more difficult than the questions that actually ended up being on the exam. So while I do think it is a great resource, and depending on how you learn, this could be a great thing for you, it just wasn't the most helpful thing for me. I also had a friend give me the Gene Inman audio recordings, and if you know, you know. I am not a very auditory learner. I do best by like visual and tactile learning. So this was also not my first choice. However, it was great to just listen to in the car, or sometimes when I was getting closer to the exam. I'm not gonna lie, I like popped her in my AirPods and fell asleep to Gene Inman. And I know I'm not the only one to do that. So if you are an auditory learner, I think that the Gene Inman audio is great. I don't know if you can buy the audio just on its own. I think you might have to buy the book and the audio. But if you don't know, Gene Inman is a dietitian with I think it's probably considered like the gold standard of study materials. It was not my gold standard, but that doesn't mean it might not be the right thing for you. While the previous two resources I do think were useful and I was glad to have them, these next two are game changers. I feel like they are the reason why I passed the exam, and I am excited to share them with you because I feel like both of them are really well kept secrets. So this first one is RD Bootcamp, and this is an incredible resource. It's run, owned, and operated by an RD, and they make animated videos for almost every topic in every domain, and it is an incredible resource for learning how to read the exam questions and figure out which answer is going to be the most correct answer. I truly don't think I would have passed the exam not having taken this course. Additionally, I really struggle with focus as someone who struggles with ADHD, and these video concepts and visual learning was really great for me to actually solidify these concepts in my mind and to figure out why an answer was the answer and why not the other answers. The last resource I'm going to mention is EatRight Prep. Now, this is not a highly recommended resource, and I'm kind of unsure why, because it's provided by the Academy and it is the most similar. The questions are the most similar to the exam, as well as the test setup. It's not exact. The screen, the user interface is not the exact same, but it's very similar. And I would say the wording in the EatRight Prep questions are much more similar to the actual exam questions than any other resource that I have mentioned. So like all the other resources, you can take mock exams and it grades you based on domain and overall. And this was by far the most reliable study tool that I used. I was getting about 80 to 85 consistently before I passed the exam, the real exam. And I think on Pocket Prep, I was getting in the 60s somewhat, like 62, 65. I think my highest in Pocket Prep was maybe in the 70s, but it really just depends. But I would highly recommend EatRight Prep. As I wrap up here, I just want you to know that you can do this. There are all kinds of study tools out there for different learning styles and different budgets, and I hope that you have found this video helpful. One last tip that I will leave you with is to go slow during your exam. Read the questions twice or 3 times and just take opportunities to take deep breaths. You do have plenty of time and you can pass this exam. I know you can do it, and I can't wait for you to come back to the comments and tell me that you passed. If you have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments. Good luck, you've got this, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.